So my guest today is Vijay Rajagopal, who's with one of the largest clouds in the enterprise, the big daddy of them, AWS. A lot has been talked about how enterprise is going to sort of completely transform. And the last 3-4 years have been this very experimental phase. What do you think is happening in these last 3 years?
This statement from Bezos many years ago, where he said that if you're going to wait to make a decision where you feel that you need to have 80-90% of the information, you're already late. AI adoption is not just an isolated tech project. It truly needs a multifunctional setup to come together. And if you give agents full autonomy and there is no accountability, it's bound to fail because there's a lot of risk. But at the end of the day, the human is accountable.
Agents are token hungry. Tokens are very expensive. What is the one use case you think that Indian BFSI is not paying enough attention to?
We have billions of people, we have massive volumes of data, we have heterogeneity in terms of languages. So it's literally a dream for somebody to put out an application scale here because no other country has such a huge scale in terms of which it can offer. I really feel we are probably among the best phases of our lives and it's only going to get better.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of our podcast, AI Adventures. And a lot has been talked about how, a lot of the AI happens in the OpenAI, Anthropic, Gemini ecosystem. But when it truly comes to AI in the enterprise, that's happening on the clouds of the enterprise. And today, we have someone with us who's with one of the largest clouds in the enterprise, the big daddy of them, AWS. So my guest today is Vijay Rajagopal, country head of BFSI and Fintech go-to-market at Amazon Web Services. Vijay, it's a pleasure to have you on our podcast today.
Hey Raghav, good morning, and it's a pleasure to be with you all as well on this podcast.
Perfect. So Vijay, a lot has been talked about that, in October 22 is when, OpenAI came and changed the game, right? And a lot has been talked about how enterprise is going to sort of completely transform. And the last 3-4 years have been this very experimental phase, right? Where everyone sort of said, yes, a lot is happening. But when you go in and see, it's still like, yes, it's going to happen. We know it's big, but it's not happened yet. What do you think is happening in these last 3 years? What is the muscle that's being built, or what's happening behind the scenes? Because you've obviously been at the forefront of these discussions in banking, in finance. So, what's happening there?
Yeah, sure, Raghav. It's a good question. And I think like all technology advancements, right? Like this is also evolving, right? That's and evolution is happening across multiple areas. So the first area where in terms of AI adoption, people are realizing is important is data. Right? It's in some sense basics of having the data right, because it is very clear that one cannot get AI ROI without having clear, segmented, structured data, uh, uh, which can serve as an input to these AI systems. Right. So that is something that people are realizing, and people are setting it right in terms of the data platforms, the data lakes, and all of that. So that's one level of activity which is happening. The second level is in terms of maturing of the tech stacks. Right. Clearly, if you see, even over the last couple of years, the pace of change in terms of these LLMs, their compute ability, the costs, right, the ability to build SLMs, I think all of that has been really happening at a fast pace. Okay, so to the extent, one is also seeing that there is a lot of convergence happening in terms of model capability. Okay, so we are seeing that earlier there used to be a lot of performance differences. Now the gap is only getting narrower and narrower as we go along. So which essentially means that now that forms the basis on which people can build upon, and people are happy with that, saying that okay, now that is improving at a fast pace and I can rely on that. The third, and I think actually the most important thing which people have been grappling with, is the cultural change. Okay, because AI adoption is not just an isolated tech project.
Right.
Right? I mean, I think the realization has happened that AI is truly horizontal.
True.
Right.
Yeah.
So it is not a siloed tech project which is run by the CTOs, CIOs, maybe
Yeah.
even CDOs, and then the rest of the organization just kind of watches. It's not that. It truly needs a multifunctional setup to come together to
Yes.
agree on, okay, what is it that we want to come out of this, and then
Mhm.
work towards it collaboratively. Okay, so
Right.
I think these three things are happening, and as with any shift, these three things are
A
happening
click
in
sound, one
various
second.
spaces across various organizations, and
Mhm.
they're coming to terms with that. Right. The last thing I would say is to be on the same page in terms of what are the outcomes I want from deploying AI. It's
Correct.
I mean, I was speaking to one of our customers the other day, and they said that there is no better time to do AI pilots than now, because
Okay.
because earlier what used to happen is people for new initiatives, people would go ask for budgets and so on. A lot of
Okay.
places now it is top driven, top down.
Yeah.
Right? The boards are allocating budgets.
Correct.
Every quarter, senior management are being asked in terms of, okay, hey, what have you done in terms of
Right.
running AI initiatives? What are the results that you've achieved, and so on. So given that now there is an imperative to run AI, it is very
Yeah.
important to align on what I want to do and what do I want to get out of this. Okay,
Right.
and that alignment again, because it has to happen across functions in an organization, takes time. And that is also something that we are seeing. So largely these four elements, Raghav, are playing out: the data piece, the tech stack, the cultural
Mhm.
shifts, and in terms of
Yeah.
alignment on what really constitutes ROI.
ROI. Yes. I think that's a very interesting perspective, Vijay. And when it comes to that statement which you said, right, it doesn't sit in the CTO or CIO's office anymore. It's across the organization. And I think Jensen Huang made an interesting statement, right? The HR teams now need to sort of say that whether a human agent and how will they collaborate together to get something done, right? So that perspective is happening. Some conversations. So in BFSI, obviously very data rich, right? And that's why it's
Yes.
a field that takes up AI at a massive pace, always a front runner. But we've been having some interesting conversations with some lesser mature data organizations within BFSI also, right? So there's obviously categories out here as well.
Yeah.
And one of the CIS told me, and this comes to a structured data piece, right? The data is the foundation. And he had a sort of very alternate way of looking at it. He said, because these models are pre-trained, it's the first time I can compete with the big boys because I can sort of pick up a pre-trained model. Obviously, I may not have the fine-tuning capabilities of my larger competitor, but I still can play in this space. Whereas earlier, in a typical ML world, most providers would come to me and say, "Hey, you don't have the data quality or the data maturity for me to even train a model, so let's not do it." At least now with these pre-trained models, I sort of leapfrog. Are you seeing that as well?
Oh, very much, very much. In fact, in some sense, a lot of these things makes it a leveler, right? Where pretty much anyone can start and work their way through deploying AI. And in fact, we also embrace it from an AWS standpoint. We have Amazon Bedrock, which essentially is a service which allows anyone to use a wide array of models that we have made available there. These are
Yeah.
pre-trained models. These are foundation models that are available there for anyone to just pick up and use. Uh, on top of it, we have also said that, okay, now if you want to kind of build your own agents, we have Agent Core, where it acts like a studio for you to
Okay.
again choose from hundreds of agents which are pre-built. So,
Okay.
so I think the point is right. I think what these capabilities are giving to enterprises the ability to leapfrog possibly multiple development cycles and hopefully go from POC to production very quickly.
God. Yeah, and this is an interesting question, and banks
Yeah.
love POCs, right? And
Yes.
as providers, sometimes there's that question that comes. Technology providers is that it's death by POC, right? Because they're not running one POC, they're running six POCs, and then some of them are sort of ambivalent in terms of POC theater is a term that's also used, right? Wherein a lot of activity in the POC world, but what's going to production is maybe 1/5, 1/10 of what's POC.
Right.
And both sides know it, right? I think sometimes even the consumer side, the consumption side knows that they're doing too much, they're experimenting too much. So have you seen, when does experimentation become too much experimentation? Like, is there a sort of a middle path out here?
See, it's an interesting phenomenon. I can tell you it is coming because people are anxious, right? Like, so it is a new thing. There is a lot of close watch in terms of what is going to come out of it. And people want to make sure that when this comes out and it's getting deployed or it is getting run in production, they're able to answer and field questions which are bound to come up, because obviously it is also taking investment. So people want to be doubly, triply careful, and which is why I think it is feeding to the large number of POCs. Having said that, my belief is that,
Yeah.
let's say a year from now, we are going to see a lot more maturity. Okay, because
Okay.
we would have seen POCs go to production, be successful. So the next time when one is looking to develop a similar use case, you're not going to need that many POCs for sure, because you've gone past that learning curve. And the learning curve will really vary from which segment. Like, I mean, are we talking of, say, NBFCs? Are we talking of insurers? Are we talking of private banks? Just in the BFSI world or in fintechs, right? Are we talking of the segment? And within the segment, I mean, are we talking of very early stage startups or more mature companies or large organizations, right? Like, so there, in some sense, the risk appetite or the ability to fail fast or even experiment is going to really depend on both these, right? The segment and the level of maturity of the firm. And that I feel is natural. I mean, it is part and parcel of new disruption that is happening. And I think, like I said, I really feel that it's going to only mature over a period of time.
There was an interesting statement you made, Vijay, right? That the industry segment, right? While BFSI is one, we, as the outsiders or as the providers still be classified BFSI, it's essentially banking, it's insurance, and it's the new age fintechs and the NBFCs, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes it almost feels that it's three speeds that are going on, right? You have
Right.
maybe the
Yeah.
fintechs and the NBFCs
Yeah.
marching ahead, banks a little more cautious, but ready to experiment because they're competing with these NBFCs and fintechs, and insurers, because of the nature of the industry, sort of a little slower, a little more cautious, maybe planting their feet a little stronger. Are you seeing that, or is it still between? There are players who sort of are going faster than the industry is demanding.
Yeah, I think what you said is right, Raghav. We are seeing that. So, if I may, I think the faster ones on the block are definitely the fintechs, and I would say the new age NBFCs, even among the NBFCs, right? Like, so, whereas the ones I would say who are looking to do more stuff after these two segments are the private sector banks and the older NBFCs. Then, of course, followed by insurers, followed by the public sector banks, and so on. In very broadly, that's the order we are seeing. Having said that, I think people are trying a lot of use cases, right? I mean, one is talking of customer support, lead generation, underwriting, claims management, document processing, customer service. All of these people are trying a bunch of use cases, and I think that is really accelerating. Okay, I mean, so we are even seeing public sector banks come out with very large RFPs in recent times, and which is truly a revelation, if you ask me. Okay, given the pace at which they're also trying to embrace this, um, and we are very grateful. We get to work with a lot of this ecosystem very closely, so we are able to be part of their thought process. We can see what is it that they are trying to experiment, what is it that they want to do, and how are they learning, right? So that is something that we have been able to see, and we try to help them in their journey as well. Of course, partnering with enterprises like you who are enabling these from a solutioning standpoint, right? Like, so that's the beauty of this whole ecosystem, where you're having enablers like us, solution providers like you all, and customers coming together to solve fairly large complex problems. And let's face it, today, AI in the enterprise space is not easy. Right? I mean, there is complexity at multiple levels, right? Like, I mean, there is legacy code, there are fragmented data systems, then the challenge of aligning on ROIs, and then getting people together to collaborate. So I think it's not an easy thing, but I think we are as an industry progressing as we speak.
No, I think great point, Vijay. I think one thing I'm picking up, and which you also alluded to, was that this time the public sector is sort of playing on the front foot, if I may, right? They're not the old cautious players of old. They want to they are sort of seeing AI as a transformation, and they want to be there where the action is, and they're throwing the gauntlet down to providers such as you, such as us, to come together and give them uh, real transformation really quickly, right? And whether it be through massive RFPs or through pilots, etc., they are ready for this game, right? I think maybe 15, 20 years ago, you would always say that, oh, unless it's proven in the private, it will then move to the public. I think now they are ready to be those innovators as well.
I agree. I agree because, and I think that just to add to that, I think that's coming from the likelihood of success that they're seeing, which is happening from their private sector counterparts, where they're seeing a lot more action. Obviously, they're realizing that that action is basis, people's thought process that it is important to put those inputs in place so that the outputs can be realized. So I think so they're kind of doing that as well. So that's what is fueling it.
So, Vijay, that leads me to sort of my next sort of thought on this, right? In terms of, and this was another conversation with the a large bank CIO, and what she was saying to me was that it's great that we are sort of looking at transformation, and it's going to happen, but the problem is this is a very unstable transformation, right? Because she was like, the model are improving at such a fast pace that and cost also is all over the place, right? Suddenly there's a better model, your old model's cost is down 50%, or maybe your costs are up as well because now consumption, not just one service, three services are running off it, right? First was just support, now marketing is also coming and saying, I want to use the same AI engine to do lead conversions better. So she's like, how are you seeing, and BFSI is all about budgets, right? They're very tight and, regulatory and this and that. And, once decisions are taken, they're typically taken for 5-10 years. That was the old era, right? Core banking, you don't switch a provider every year or every 6 months. But here they are being demanded to do that, right? Because a better model comes up, costs are cheaper, you may just want to shift. So how do you see these orgs do this, right? Because at one end they are sort of in that old mature world where decisions were 5-10 years, and here models are changing every week now.
I think what we are seeing is that the senior leaders who are driving this are having to be fairly flexible and nimble in terms of their thought process, because they also realize that it's a dynamic environment that they are playing in. Not only them, but their partners, solution providers who are helping them stitch it together are also playing in the dynamic environment. Now, that is irrespective of whether if they're trying to build something, even if it's a largely a build solution versus a buy, for both the answer is the same. Because even when one is trying to build, there is dependency on models, there is dependency on various other pieces to stitch together a use case, right? Like so I think people are seeing that. So what we are seeing the best of the AI leaders, right? And now I think you would have seen the new the CXO piece in terms of chief AI officers
Yes,
starting
yes.
to slowly becoming more and more in the limelight.
True.
They are the ones who are sensing this. They know that okay, it is whatever I have today in terms of my assumptions, those are definitely going to change,
Correct.
right? So my assumptions in terms of cost, in terms of even what I think today the use case can deliver vis-a-vis what it may potentially deliver, right? On both sides, it can under-deliver and also overperform.
Very true.
So so I think that it's needing a certain level of mental flexibility to be
Mhm.
open to those, and we have seen the best of AI leaders have that.
Correct.
right? They're not kind of rigidly bound saying that, okay, hey, these are the parameters in which I will operate and this is what I want, because they understand, right? The world is
Correct.
changing so fast that things will change from whatever assumptions we are making. So we have this interesting, I would say, a template in Amazon that we
Okay.
use called a two-way door decision. Okay, so
Okay.
so so look, so we see that, okay, now when one is trying to examine a decision,
Mhm.
right? Firstly, if I think there was this statement from Bezos many years ago where he said that if you're going to wait to make a decision where you feel that you need to have 80-90% of the information, you're already late. Right?
Okay.
Like, so if let's say you are in this 50 to 70% mark, he says that's good enough. And I
That's
think
good.
one of the best ways to evaluate a decision, and that truly applies to an AI decision, which is why I'm making this
True.
example, is that is it a two-way door decision, right? Like, can I reverse it and come back and maybe even go better vis-a-vis it
Correct.
a one-way door decision, right? So one-way door
Correct.
decisions naturally need to, uh, you know, uh, uh, we need to spend more time in
Time.
deliberating the risks and so on. But if it's a two-way door decision where you can reverse where you have traversed, obviously with the learnings, then I
Right.
think it's important to move fast basis that. And I have found it's a very useful framework when looking at these decisions.
No, I think which I really love the statement: reverse where you traversed. Right. If you can
Yeah.
do that,
Yes.
that's powerful. Um, some of that, and I have two questions on this because it's sort of led me to an interesting point. Is the CIOs and the tech folks sort of have this mindset, right? But
Mm.
they're reporting into boards or they're
Mm.
reporting into CEOs who's largely seen technology from a deterministic output, right? Like if you implemented maybe a mobile app in 2015, you would just see, okay, is adoption going up? And well, there would be maybe monthly or yearly updates, but largely you knew what you were getting into. Or but with AI, the model can be significantly better in 6 months, and you don't know what you're getting into. So how do folks who are doing AI decision making but still reporting into
Yeah.
senior leadership, like boards and other kinds of stakeholders, regulators, how do they present this kind of ultra flexibility, this kind of
Yeah.
ultra dynamism, right?
Yeah. I
How
think
do
in this,
how do they cross it?
yeah, sure. I think in this, interestingly, I would like to draw an analogy from a very different field in terms of investing, which I know you also relate to a lot. It's what I call the margin of safety. Okay,
Okay.
so I think, and when I say margin of safety, I mean margin of safety in terms of what outcomes one is expecting. Okay, so
Hmm.
am I expecting that? And let's look at different examples. Okay,
Right.
so am I expecting that my developer productivity will enhance by 20%? Am I
Hmm.
expecting that my call waiting time will reduce by 10%? Am I expecting that overall in terms of sales lead generation will it go up by 20%? Okay, so, and I'm giving these numbers to say that
Correct.
now it is important to, let's say the model and the solution is promising X. It's
Okay.
important to keep a buffer on that.
Okay.
Right, to allow for those variances, it's important to keep the buffer on that in terms of what outcomes can come out of it, right? So you have a margin of safety when you're presenting to the board or to the senior management, or one is trying to influence. Okay, that is
Okay.
the first thing. Second,
Okay.
with the way things are moving, largely we realize that with models getting better, compute getting faster, cost going down, hopefully there is more positive upside, okay,
Okay.
than downside. So if you already build in a margin of safety, then the chances are that you're going to be positively surprised will only increase given the changes
True.
that are happening, right? So I
True.
think that's the other thing to keep in mind, given the way things are moving. Now, having said all this, it's very important to be transparent about governance. Okay, and that is something that's actually quite close to my heart, and which I feel people, it's very important for people to embrace it totally. Okay,
Mhm.
and I'll take some time to talk about that. So it is, see, when it comes to agents, right, and there is a lot of talk about autonomous agents.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
So, yeah, so now if you give agents full autonomy and there is
Mhm.
no accountability, then
Okay.
it's bound to fail because there's a lot of risk, right? There is
True.
no accountability, and so it can just go berserk. If you swing the other direction in terms of the pendulum and you make it fully accountable, but there is very little or hardly any autonomy, then you're not going to get the results. Right? So
Correct.
the best of leaders, and this is both the AI leaders and the ones whom they're reporting into, need to understand that it's a balance. Okay,
Mhm.
it is a balance, right? While you will need to deploy these autonomous agents in terms of repetitive tasks,
Correct.
things that can enhance productivity, etc. At the end of the day, the human is
Okay.
accountable. The
Mm-hmm.
human is accountable, and where
Right.
decisions need discretion, judgment, even where there are ethics involved, it has to have a human in the loop, right? And
Okay.
possibly even a human reviewing the whole action. Okay,
Action.
so that
Okay.
is the second piece that is very important, right? It's very
Got it.
important to build in governance. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
I think it's and the third piece around this is in terms of related to governance is in terms of the guardrails. Okay, and
Okay.
guardrails we really believe, and from an AWS standpoint, is that it has to be designed into the architecture.
Okay.
It cannot be just intent, right? It cannot be just SOPs sitting in Word documents or Excel sheets. Read,
True.
right? So it has to be
Yeah.
built in by intent.
Okay.
It has to be built in beyond intent in terms of it actually getting into the architecture. And now we are talking of identity and access management. We are talking of alerts. We are talking of configurations. All of that,
Correct.
which makes sure that
Yeah.
it is secure by design. Okay, and that is
Mhm.
something which is super important. The last
Right.
piece, and which is unique to BFSI, I would say, is that it is, as we know, a highly regulated sector,
Very true.
which
Yeah.
which means that the regulator is looking for explainability. One
True.
cannot say, "Hey, my agent did this." It is very important to substantiate it with why the agent did what it did.
No black boxes, right?
Yes, yes. So the importance of the audit trails and explainability is super important in BFSI. Okay, and I think that these things are important when to your question in terms of when an AI leader is looking at deploying these systems and he's trying to justify it to his board. He
Right.
needs to make sure that there is a margin of safety. He needs to make sure
Correct.
that governance is built in. He needs to make
Okay.
sure accountability is built in. And
Mhm.
lastly, he needs to make sure that the audit trails and explainability is part of the AI systems that are being built in. And I think so these are key levers that actually help him or her present a very strong case and move forward.
No, makes sense, Jay. And I really like that investing analogy, right? Margin of safety
Yeah.
and long term, right? Because we all say when it comes to the investing world, we all say that if you're going to invest for a year, you never know whether you're going to be in profit or loss. But if you invest
Yeah.
with a 10-year mindset, it's
Yes.
a rare time, or a 5-year mindset, it's a rare case that you make a loss because long term takes care of it. And that's where I feel that long term optimism, right? Because
Yes.
we all know the graph is to the right and up. You need to sort of bake that in, right? So maybe that's a good approach. And then obviously governance. And I like when you said governance by design, right? It
Yeah.
cannot be a bolt on. And we all know those SOPs and policies which are like, oh, the system's done now we need to govern it. So let's
Correct.
sort of make an SOP which maybe is opened once every 6 months and no one's really understanding what's going on. Uh,
Yes.
that's very true. Well, one thing that's exciting a lot of folks is voice, right? I think in BFSI, heavy customer support, right? I think no other industry sees customer support like BFSI, right? Because in the end, it's largely what is it? It's you're largely a digital interface to your money, right? Whether you're a bank or an insurer or whatever, and it's those customer support interactions which build or break you, right? Because essentially that's when something non-procedural has happened, right? You need to sort of reach out to support, and it's your money or it's your risk when it's insurer that that's what you're sort of paying this bank or insurer for or fintech for, right? And that's a moment of truth. Now customer support is still largely voice led, right? Because as humans, when that moment happens, if it's something procedural like getting my statement, etc., yes, I'm going to go to the app or the website. But if it's something bigger, I'm going to make a phone call. And
Yeah.
when that phone call happens, we all know human customer support sort of been plus and minus kind of scenario. And voice AI sort of is now this new powerful tool, right? Everyone's like, hey, 24 by 7, high quality, will follow our SOPs, will never have a bad day, etc. So where do you see voice AI play, and what's AWS doing in this whole voice AI space?
Yeah. So I honestly feel, Raghav, among the various elements of AI that is playing out today in terms of use cases, I personally feel voice AI has the biggest transformative potential, especially for a country like India.
True,
See, let's look at the numbers. So we are literally talking billions of minutes every month that enterprises and BFSI enterprises make to their customers
true,
in terms of outbound calls, in terms of handling inbound queries. It could be for an upsell, cross sell. It could be for handling a customer complaint, whatever. Right? Like so, we are
true.
seeing a lot of scale, and
Yeah.
the interesting bit is that a large portion of these volumes are fairly repetitive, right?
True,
So they're fairly repetitive in terms of the nature. By nature, it's repetitive, which means
true.
that a highly trained voice agent and possibly even a voice agent in the vernacular languages, an
Right,
almost human-like experience can take care of it. Okay,
right.
and in cases where it's not able to take care of it, the system should allow for escalating it to a human agent. Okay,
True.
I think when one is able to build such systems and deploy it at scale, I think the results can be tremendous. In fact, with several of our customers, we are already seeing signs that they are getting the ROI in this. Talk about loan collections, right?
Okay.
Talk about cross selling insurance, talk about handling claims, talk
Mhm.
about EMI reminders, right? Talk about insurance renewals. So we are seeing that our customers are willing to deploy these. And the wonderful thing is that even the voice ecosystem has matured so much. I mean, if you
Mhm.
look at the progress that has happened just in the last 1 year, thanks to a slew of players, who are doing tremendous work in this space, right? And I'm not just talking of the voice models. Obviously, it needs an ecosystem to be deployed. When it's
Right,
players like you who are orchestrating and putting things together. It's
right,
players like, say, to just name a few top of the mind ones like a Servam or a Smallest, who are deploying the models, or someone like 11 Labs or Cartesia, who have some of the best text to speech models in the country today. I think a lot of work is happening in this space. Okay.
Mhm.
And I think there are clear tailwinds that we are seeing. Right? That's the
Okay.
first thing. The second thing is, in terms of people's willingness to deploy these,
Mhm.
is quite high because it is tangible cost savings. It's tangible.
True.
Like it is
Mhm.
not something that can happen down the line and I have to wait for it. It's tangible, real cost savings from day one. So people are definitely willing to fast track this. If there are a bunch of use cases, they're willing to fast track these voice use cases. Okay.
Got
The third thing I actually feel is that this has a unique way of delivering hyper personalization at scale. Okay, it's a very
Okay.
interesting. It's a very interesting thing because to hyper personalize, naturally you need to go specific to that individual or to
Right.
the SMB whom one is selling to. But to do that at scale needs a system. And so
Correct.
one cannot hyper personalize with just humans doing it because
Yeah.
right, it is going to be
N is
linear.
equal to 1 is not possible. Right. Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Right.
So it is very interesting that these systems and solutions are allowing us to hyper personalize at scale. So I'll give you an
Mhm.
example, right? Like so, think about say a vegetable vendor, and this which is also why it's close to my heart because I think this can really bring in inclusion. Okay,
Sure.
so look at a vegetable vendor, who has huge swings in terms of his monthly income because obviously it depends on how much he sells every month and so on.
True.
So he needs a working capital loan, right? And
Right.
he doesn't have formal credit records or credit scores or anything like that. He doesn't even have an income statement and so on, right? So it is possible with the help of both generative AI and voice AI to be able to get alternate data sources about that vegetable vendor, understand his as simple as say let's say if he uses a smart speaker for his QR payment receipts, it's
Okay.
easy to plug into it to understand how much payments is he getting on a monthly basis, on a daily basis, right? And how is that variability over a period of time? And
True.
to be able to use voice AI to talk to that person in
Mhm.
his language, his or her local language, to understand, hey, how is that varying over a period of time, and to get interesting data points, to put it together, and
Okay.
on the fly, right, which is where hyper personalization comes in. On the fly, generate a credit product which can work for that person.
Okay. Got it.
Okay, which can work. And if you actually step back to think about it, it's truly mind-boggling, because one can do this not just with one person, one can do it with lakhs of vendors.
And across languages, right? So language is no longer a barrier, and
Exactly.
literacy is no longer a barrier, right?
Yes.
Because again, when it comes to India, and you gave these examples, informal vendors,
Yeah.
they no longer are filling forms or anything, right? They're co-creating a product on a phone call is the future
Yeah.
that we're heading to, and may already be happening, right? As
Yeah.
well as we speak.
Yes.
Uh,
And just
Vijay,
on the
obviously,
one, just one
yeah,
point to touch
yeah,
upon it, in terms of what is it that we as an entity are doing to build on it, Raghav. I think
yeah,
so. We have a voice-to-voice solution called Novasonic,
correct,
which brings together all related elements in a very simple, easy to use fashion. We have that as a solution deployed in the US right now, and it will come to India soon. So we are
true,
looking at using that to really make this happen very seamlessly.
true. Yeah, and Vijay, obviously Amazon Echo, right? All those years
Yeah.
ago. So
Yes.
I remember that being a magical experience way back in 2015, 16 times. So you have obviously AWS, Amazon both have that standing in the voice space. Really looking forward to seeing Nova Sonic
Yeah.
here in India as well. And
Yes.
I know I've been talking to your teams and
Yes.
hoping that you guys launch it quickly here. But
Yeah.
how has it been like? Is now that Nova Sonic obviously a voice to voice model, right? So
Yes.
it goes way beyond the old models, right? Text to speech,
Correct.
speech to text.
Correct.
This makes the voice there very intuitive, right? Very human like, much faster. So
Correct.
do you think that's going to be the next step? Because till now, whatever's been done in voice has largely been a TTS, STT kind of a play. But
Correct.
with solutions like Nova Sonic, do you think we now move to the next step?
No, absolutely, absolutely. Right? I mean, essentially what it does is, if you look at a traditional voice AI stack, it was, you had your speech, and then you had your ASR, and it would convert to text, and then you had an LLM to process it. Again, you had it back to text, and the text had to be converted to speech, and you had these multiple components coming together. With voice models like Novasonic, it's just speech, Novasonic back to speech. Okay, so one, it simplifies the whole cascade. Second, it removes latency, errors, and pipeline complexity. Okay, so you're really talking of real-time speech-to-speech AI, where users can interrupt, the model can respond mid-conversation, and of course, conversations feel natural and human-like. Okay, so
True.
something that is important. Most importantly, I think these voice-to-voice models go deeper in terms of understanding one's tone, the
Awesome.
rhythm, and
Yeah.
even getting to understanding emotions, right? I think those are critical things that we are seeing. And if you look at the call center universe, these are essential capabilities. Okay,
Okay.
so when you combine it with multiple languages, these can really go way beyond in terms of agentic workflows. It can, while this is happening, it can trigger a CRM lookup, an account verification, bunch of things, payment actions, all of that. Okay, so I actually think it could be quite disruptive.
Makes sense. Yeah. No, I think the journey to voice. So I think we are already, the last era of models, which did this whole TTS, STT, all of that. They sort of made it very possible, right? They made people sort of say, hey, at least for the mundane, for the repetitive, let's go and use these. I think voice to voice is now going to make it the default, even for more complex, those more intense conversations, wherein you still felt that, oh, I can't have any latency, right? I need to really get the nuance of what the customer's emotion is. And that's where these now take us to the next level.
Yes.
So now that we know that there are going to be so many agents, we know
Yeah.
data is sort of going to get more and more structured. AI is going to help us structure that data. More and more of the ability for banks and financial service organizations to program is also improved, right? Using something like a Claude Code or a Cursor or any of these tools, they are now able to push out a lot more programming bandwidth out there, right? But that sort of, typically BFSI has been a buyer of technology, right? Obviously, there is the JP Morgans of the world who
Yes.
are builders as well, but they're largely buyers. Do you think now with more and more of these, the internal IT teams getting this productivity boost, do you think there'll be a shift to build as well, or will this still remain a build and buy kind of?
Raghav, that's a great question. And in some pockets, we're already seeing that shift happening. Thanks to these developer productivity tools, which are now leapfrogging the development cycles. Okay, so I think gone are the days when one would rely on a typical waterfall SDLC kind of a model. Right. So
Yeah.
thanks to vibe coding, and in fact, we at AWS have something called Hero, which is a
Okay.
spec-driven, coding agent-enabled coding tool,
Right.
which really allows for coding at a much faster pace. We are
Mhm.
seeing in our customers AI centers of excellence coming up,
Okay.
where these are actively being embraced.
Mhm.
Right, these are being embraced to help developers enhance the productivity, to ship out products faster. And interestingly, it is not just in the technical part of the world. Even if you look at core product development in terms of
Okay.
making, building out use cases, business requirement documents, and even getting into design documents,
Sure.
agents and these LLMs are being used to make it much faster. Yeah, right. So it's starting both, like both on the
Yes.
product side and on the engineering side.
And legit. Got it. So, and both of them are sort of, then sort of saying, hey, now we have some capabilities internally as well. Rather
Yes.
than just running, the RTB function, right? Run the bank, run the org. They are now sort of saying, hey, we can also be the innovative side.
Yeah. Correct. Though I
Uh,
feel that for a lot of these applications which people want to deploy, and especially when it comes to these AI applications, I think BFSI and again, it's important to differentiate the fintechs from the banks.
Correct.
Fintechs are largely built. They are
They've been
romping
building for a
forward.
long time. Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. Right. So
Yeah.
they are going ahead at full pace in terms of building these in-house, whereas
Mm.
banks are setting up these in-house teams who are able to work with various solution providers, right? And but they also realize that they don't need to build out everything from their own.
Good. Yeah.
Possibly, I think it'll mature to a place where they retain some core tech capability in-house, with
Got it.
with a lot of working closely with ecosystem partners to build an end-to-end solution out. I think that's where I think it will stabilize.
Got it. No, I think Vijay, that's true. I think that collaboration will still be the key, right? Because
Yes,
in a field like AI, where there's so much change, you need partners who sort of are just on top of it, whose day in and day out is that. So,
exactly.
and they're bringing that innovation back to your AI centers of excellence and collaborating and taking
Absolutely.
that
Even
forward.
for example, in terms of some of the stuff that you all as Fluid AI do, right? I think since you are, I would say, on the cutting edge of things, you're able to bring it to the customers much faster
True.
than it would take for their internal teams to learn, iterate, and then perfect it. I think the cycles are faster when people work collaboratively with partners. I think that's where it's getting to.
Very true. Very true. Vijay, I had one question, and this is again a question that a lot of bank CFOs ask me actually. So you know how the journey is, right? For a provider like us, you get your sign-offs from business, you get your tech checked out by the CIO and the tech team, and then you finally arrive at the CFO's desk, right? And one of the things that they sort of have, it's a notion, and I'm wondering how you saw that notion, is that agents are token hungry, tokens are very expensive. Right? That's literally what a CFO told me, right? He was like, I know my AI, and I know agents are token hungry and tokens are very expensive. Um, but somewhere they have a point, right? When you're the CFO and you're trying to budget these things, and we've talked about it a little earlier, right? Obviously, this is not deterministic. It blows
Yes.
up. ROIs are uncertain. And CIOs navigate that, right? Margin of safety, they try to build those levers in. But when it comes to the CFO's desk, and he's like, okay, returns are one thing, but I need to sort of, have this down as a cost in my budget, right? And you're sort of saying, yeah, right, a typical call can cost anywhere from 3,500 tokens to maybe 20,000 tokens, because we are not sure, right? It's the first time these models are sort of in play. How do you do those guardrails, right? How do we do these financial guardrails out there, right? Because you cannot, like, let's say you take customer support on a voice-to-voice model, and you have an estimate. That estimate goes off, but you can't turn it off now because your customer support is dependent on that agent performing. So, how does a good CFO sort of approach this problem?
Interestingly, Raghav, this goes back to a thread that we spoke about in the early part of the conversation in terms of why there are so many POCs happening today.
Yeah.
Okay, because CFOs feel that is one way by which they can have a check in terms of what will play out when I take it to production. Okay, so
Right.
and
How do I
going back to
extrapolate this?
exactly right, and going back to another framework that I said, a POC is a two-way door decision. That I can do a POC, choose not to go to
Okay.
production, right?
Yeah.
Whereas when I go to production, like you rightly said, now it's there out in front of my customers. Okay, so
Correct.
that's the first thing that CFOs see. CFOs are watching very closely these POC costs.
Correct.
Okay, in terms of saying what are the variances, what is the band in which these costs can go to, etc. And I think we have seen the mature CFOs again understand that it is going to be a range, and it's not going to be linear. And in fact, over a period of time, thanks to these LLMs continuously bringing their cost down, token cost is also declining, and
Very
so
true.
on. Yes, the number of token usage could vary, but the per token cost is declining, right? Like
Is
you
it
said.
right?
So I think I think the good CFOs are aware of that, right? The mature CFOs who understand these dynamics of AI and how to deploy and so on, they understand that, and that is what we are also seeing them appreciate these nuances, and then support the business in these things.
Got it. So I guess it's almost a collaborative, right? It's no longer that, okay, CIO's sign off has come, so now I'll sort of budget this through. It's almost
Yeah.
you're sort of sitting on the same side of the table and saying, yes, this is the impact, and these are some variances, and we sort of just need to work with this, right? It just
Absolutely,
goes.
absolutely. In fact, ties back to the multifunctional point that I mentioned, saying that why this is not a tech project. It is truly
Yeah,
multifunctional, and the finance function has as much say, if not more, at the table.
very true. Yeah,
Yeah,
I think that's where it's sort of pushing people culturally, which you said, right? That you no longer can function in a hierarchy. Like maybe 10 years ago, you said, okay, CIO, you check the tech out. Now you can go to procurement and, let's push the vendor down 10, 15, 20% and get things done.
right.
This won't work that way because it's not deterministic, right? Yeah, there's a lot
Yes,
of leeway everyone needs to give because it's
yes,
transformational, but you just don't know how transformational.
exactly.
Vijay, I wanted to talk about a part of AWS, which I think people don't sort of know enough about, right? And it's on the semiconductor side, right? A lot of folks know that AI is a game of the GPUs, of the semiconductors, right? Because essentially, when you go down these layers, right, you go down from agents to models. Models are powered by semiconductors, right? And the efficiency out there also plays a key role. We've seen how those things are impacting folks. The India emission is spending a ton of money to buy GPUs and get things done. I know Amazon's done some very interesting work in that space, right? Both on the chip side, which is inference chips as well as training chips. So, would
Yes.
love to sort of hear your thoughts on what are you guys doing there and how is that impacting your performance?
Sure, Raghav. In fact, there are two custom AI accelerator chips that we have brought out as AWS. One is called Trainium, the other is called Inferentia. Trainium is for training AI models, and Inferentia is to run trained AI models. Okay, now let's break it down. So, typically, what's the biggest expense in AI is in terms of them needing massive compute. Okay, because whether you're training a model or you're deploying the model, they all need GPUs, and GPUs are expensive. there is a lot of dependency on a few players. For example, Nvidia is the largest player in terms of this capacity and so on. So at AWS, we thought it is important that we make it more affordable for our customers, right? Because that is when it is going to result in more demand. It has to be made more affordable. So, which is why we started investing in these. The other is also, of course, uh, to reduce dependency and kind of make it more embedded into our value chain. So, which means that we are playing across the value AI value chain, right from chips to models to working with our customers on cloud data and AI use cases and so on. So that's why we brought this out, and we have seen that wherever we have used inferential based instances, they have delivered up to 70% lesser cost per inference, vis-a-vis comparable other instances and so on. So we are quite excited about these two, and we have seen customers adopt this, obviously, to bring their overall AI cost down. And to the earlier question, that should be more music to the CFO's ears. We hope so.
No,
Yeah.
makes sense, Vijay. I think I think everyone is now sort of the years are sort of merging, right? Earlier, everyone was sort of sticking to their corner, but I think now uh, to derive efficiency, you need to go up and down, right? And sort of that's just the nature of the dynamism that AI has sort of brought to the table. So one thing which obviously you've been working a lot with BFSI in India, and you've
Yeah.
also obviously been exposed to what's happening internationally for a long time. Uh, what is the one use case you think that Indian BFSI is not paying enough attention to when it comes to AI and agentic AI, which globally sort of is got traction and which maybe India should be paying attention to?
I think where people are still experimenting and on the fence is in terms of using agents to underwrite.
Okay.
Okay, I think and in terms of core underwriting capabilities, I think the tendency is that people feel it's very close to their business model. It's in quote unquote proprietary, even in some cases. So obviously there is more reluctance to give that away largely to agents, and we are
Okay.
seeing that. My belief, again, like with everything else, once as we are seeing success in other use cases, we will also start seeing success here. In fact, we have seen some of our insurance customers start to put
Okay.
agents to underwrite for their insurance, for underwriting insurance for their customers. We will see that happening on the credit side as well, and I
Okay.
think it will happen. And that is the one area where I feel that right now there is a lag between what's happening with the global financial services firms and what's happening in India. But I don't expect the gap to remain for too long.
And anything where you feel India is sort of taking the lead and India is serving as an example to global BFSI, wherein our usage of agents or our usage of AI is sort of ahead of the global benchmark.
I think where we are scoring massively is in terms of the enormous number of application based AI developments that are happening. And that's thanks to some intrinsic strengths as a country we have. We have billions of people, we have massive volumes of data, we have heterogeneity in terms of languages. So it's literally a dream for somebody to put out an application scale here,
True.
realize the value,
Yeah.
right, and then take it to rest of the world, because no other country has such a huge scale in terms which it can offer. And obviously we have some of the best brains in terms of putting together the application layers. And I think it's also because of the variety of use cases that we have. And this is not just in BFSI fintech,
Correct.
Raghav. We are seeing use cases across healthcare, pharmaceuticals, manufacturing,
Mhm.
life sciences, which are fairly game changing. Okay, and again,
Correct.
any space you take, you're again talking of millions and billions of people on which this can work on, and so which
Correct.
means that it gives you a sample size to take your POCs to production very fast. And I think in some sense we are blessed as a country, we have that opportunity. And obviously that's giving rise to a lot of innovators and startups, who are wanting to build on that. So it's actually very exciting as a country to look at the kind of AI applications that can come, that are already started coming out, and which I think we are only seeing the tip of the iceberg yet.
No, I think Vijay, very well put. So I remember once I got a global bank CIO down to India, and we just took him on a drive to his hotel from the office. And he said, he told my chauffeur that, if you can drive in India, you can drive anywhere, right? Because he was just saying, so, and I think that's what you alluded to, right? The complexity of India, right? Billions of customers, heterogeneity of languages, a very wide demographic of customers also, right? You can,
Yes.
so in fact, like when I sometimes talk to my global customers and
Hmm.
I'll say, oh, that's a mid-sized bank in India, right? They're maybe planning on partnering with them. And they're like, you're saying that's a mid-sized bank that has 40 million customers. And you're like, yeah, in India, a large bank is 100 million plus customers,
That's
so
right. Yes.
very true. So I think if if you can make it work in India as a provider,
Yeah.
you have an easy path to the rest of the world from there.
Absolutely right. We have state populations which are larger than a lot of countries.
Yeah,
So it gives you that starting point and to kind of deploy, and which is also why I mentioned about voice AI and the potential, right? Because just the sheer volume is so large, and the point about being able to hyper personalize it at that scale is truly fascinating.
true.
Yeah.
So, Vijay, one of the things, right? So we've talked a lot about voice. India is obviously a very, it's a very visual country as well, right? And I know BFSI doesn't really think much about video AI right now. I think some use cases around maybe customer education are happening. But do you see a path to BFSI using video generation capabilities? Because it's getting there, right? If you're seeing the latest models,
Yeah.
video quality is improving.
Yes.
And India, we've always been so visual, right? We love meeting each other, etc. So do you think there's a play out here as well to be made maybe in the next year or two?
I think that's a great question, Raghav, and I think there is a very strong play out there for a few reasons. I think firstly, we are starting to see a lot of our banking customers for their in-house training needs
Okay.
want AI content which is visual.
Okay.
Okay, which is visual to the extent that it is almost real like videos rather than just the standard training content, which is a lot of text with some images, right? So we are starting to see those requirements, and we are starting to see, interestingly, some entities build on those requirements as well. Right? That's the
Okay.
first phase. So I think we are going to see, because it's always it's like this in terms of the adoption cycle.
True.
It's always easier to go in-house first, look
In-house
at
first.
what's
Yeah.
working, and then see what you can do for your customer. So
True.
so we are definitely seeing that. The second piece where I think it can be really valuable is in terms of a large amount of marketing content that's dynamic, that can be personalized, and that can be done for, especially for entities which have a huge B2C franchise. Okay,
Mhm.
so because a lot of the B2C franchise today is on very popular channels like Instagram and so on, where even TikTok for that matter, where they want that kind of video content.
True.
So I think gone are the days when when they would just be happy with text. I think
Those are
we are in
over.
this era of shorts and reels, right? And
Correct.
it is not possible for human marketers to generate massive volumes of that on
True.
a daily basis. So of course, so for marketing content in terms of video, I think it's very very relevant.
Okay.
I think the third element, and which I think you all have done a great job, is in terms of AI avatars.
True.
Okay, where these are personas where people can connect to those personas, brands can connect to those personas. Those personas can be your talking points, and they say right, they are there 24 cross 7, right? So,
Yes.
so they are there talking for you. I think that's a third very interesting area which brands are going to latch on to.
Perfect. No,
Yeah.
I think that too, right? We are very excited for video. I think, Vijay. I think
Yeah.
next couple of years, I think it's where voice was maybe 2 years ago, right? I think
Yes.
still people finding their feet, like you said, a lot of internal use cases, sort of now, sort of training, etc., happening, and then 2 years later, I think folks are going to be like, yes, this is so immersive, right? Why not use it to have a deeper connection? And even things like wealth management, right? That's where
Mm.
a, you want something visual, right? Because it's your money and it's investing, it's a little more complicated. So maybe you want to not just do it over a very cold digital platform. You want maybe something a bit more humane to sort of come and talk to you and have a conversation among your
Absolutely.
well.
Absolutely.
Perfect, Vijay. So it was wonderful chatting with you. I don't know where the hour went, and
Likewise.
a lot of insights. I think taking away a lot around the governance aspect, governance by design, the two-way door theory, the margin of safety from investing. I think that was especially powerful, and really excited to see, the innovation you and the Amazon team are bringing to India. And thank you so much for your time today, and look forward to continued collaboration.
Absolutely, Raghu. I think it's been a pleasure. And like you mentioned, loved the conversation and the various areas which you took it to. And like you in this AI ecosystem, I am super excited about what lies ahead. I actually feel we are probably in among the best phases of our lives, and it's only going to get better.
We have one last question.
Yeah.
When do you think AGI hits us?
I'm honestly not the expert.
Yeah.
From what I've been hearing from other experts,
Okay.
with a lot of respect to them, is I think people are talking of 2 to 3 years is
Two
what
to 3 years.
is as the window,
Okay.
maybe
So
give or
28,
take.
29 is when AGI comes
Yes,
in.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah,
Perfect.
true.
Nice talking, Vijay, and look
Likewise, Bhagat.
forward.
Good
Okay.
conversation. I enjoyed it. Thank you.